Hello everyone, my name is Andre, and in this video I'll explain to you how a new node for node-red works. The node called spool, and what it does is it detects status changes from downstream nodes, output nodes, and depending on the connectivity status of the downstream node, it then saves data which is passed from some upstream input nodes. And when the connectivity status is restored, so it saves the data when the connection status is down, and when the connection status is restored, it then retrieves and removes the data from the configured SQLite database file. Now, how it all works. So on this screen, you can see typical setup for testing or for production environment for this node. The main things here is that first of all, we need to have at least one input, of course, to just pass on some messages, some data. And here we have two input nodes, but so basically you can have as many nodes if you want as input nodes. Just for the sake of easiness of running tests, I have this very straightforward timestamp generation node, and then we have status node, and status node should catch status updates of whatever output node is connected to the spool. Now, important thing is that spool only, well, technically it can accept multiple output nodes, but it can effectively work with only one of them because, for example, if you have two or three output nodes and one of them goes down while the rest are still up, spool will store all messages and won't pass anything downstream. So this is something that's important to realize, and this is why it's important to have single status node for each output node as well, and make sure that status node outputs status changes of whatever downstream output node is connected to this particular spool node. Now, spool node itself, the configuration of node is quite straightforward. So first of all, we can obviously we can change its name as per the standard specification of node-red or whatever you call it. Then we can change connected and disconnected status tags. Now, these are whatever status node passes down. And these depend on what output node the status node is monitoring. So, for example, TCP output generates a disconnected message in one way, or for example, MQTT output node would generate slightly different disconnection messages, and this applies to all output nodes. So basically, it allows spool to work with whatever output node is there downstream. And finally, so yeah, these are the default values, by the way, so they can be safely used for most of these nodes. And they were tested for TCP node and MQTT node, so it's all good like this. Now, database is the fourth configuration option, and we just need to specify path to a very simple SQLite database file. It obviously it's not necessary for it to have this name. It can be called whatever, but yeah, you need to specify this path. And well, when you will run node-red with spool, when you will run this flow, it will output whether the connection to this node was successful or not. So just to show you, this is what's getting output when we run the node. And this message, open_spool.sqlite successfully, means that database connection was established. So we can now actually work with things. And now let's explore the output a little bit more. So status node always passes updates about the connection status of the downstream node until the connection is actually established, which happened here. So once we're connected, it stops passing these messages. Now to test it, let's do this small simple thing. Let's just push some input. And here, this is another window which I'm using, another command line which I'm using to test the connection of TCP server. So it's something really simple, and I'll show you why it's good for testing for nodes like this one. Okay, so when the connection status is green, what spool does is it simply passes data downstream. Now, in fact, it's not the only thing it does, but let's just leave it at that for now. So that's all good. Now let's bring the output down. Okay, so connection status lost. Okay, node-red not throws an error, but well, basically it throws an error. Let's just pass a little bit of data and see what's going on. Okay, so basically now spool, it sees that the connection status is false. It even has a special variable assigned to a monitoring of this parameter. And basically every single piece of input that this particular spool node gets is getting stored to the database which we have connected to that node, and we can see some reporting of that. So basically, what was executed, what query was executed, and what exactly was saved to the database. Okay, so now we have these 4 messages in the database. Connection status is disconnected. Now let's see what will happen. What will happen if we will restore the connection status. It may take some time for it to pick up that the connection status has changed, but it's very fast to do it like this in comparison to MQTT, for example. Because when it comes to MQTT, it may take up to 60 seconds for node-red to detect its connectivity status change, unfortunately, but whatever. Okay, so what happened now? Once we have restored the connection, first spool passed all the previously saved data downstream, and it did it exactly in the order it previously saved it, and we can see it by checking ID. So for example, the first ID was let's see, this one 3FC blah 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 3FC, and the last one was 675. Yep, so the order is the same, which is kind of important, obviously, due to the nature of Internet of Things. And also, after we've done with that, we do removals. So we retrieve and remove, and we remove in exactly the same order, which is probably a bit less important, though maybe it's not. So, but whatever, we do it in a deterministic way, so we know exactly what is the order of removal, just as well as of the retrieval of the data, and we remove data from the database. So database is now empty again. And that's pretty much it. This is how it all works. So that's quite simple, and I guess it can be quite handy to handle situation when your output node has some sort of connectivity issues. Well, I guess one last thing is that if for whatever reason you had a huge amount of data stored in spool, and for example your output node changes its connectivity status quite often, and for example, let's say you have 10,000 messages which was stored in spool and which are waiting to be passed downstream, and your output node restores its connection for like, I don't know, 2 seconds, right? It's nearly not long enough for spool to pass everything downstream, but it will, and it will consider everything to be passed downstream, and it won't check whether the node, so even if the connectivity status of downstream node will change back to disconnected, spool will still send everything downstream. So yeah, in situation like this, it's still not the best solution ever, but just as essentially some sort of contingency, as part of contingency planning for your Internet of Things system, I think it may work quite well. So yeah, I guess that's it. And also it's available to be installed via an npm package, of course, and you can find the link to it in the description of the video below. So yeah, feel free to use it, and well, you can connect me on GitHub, for example. Yeah, feel free to do it if you need something. Okay, thank you for listening, and have a good day, everyone.